What's on, minifans? I went into this project thinking I'll make something simple with a coffee tin, but of course it turned out a bit more complex than I'd initially planned. Anyway, if you like anything in the vid, feel free to like, comment and subscribe, and ring that notification bell to stay up to date with my builds. Enough of that, let's get on to building. Alright, the basis of this build is a metal coffee tin. To start off with, I print out the walkway templates which are shared down below. I just print those out on 1mm cardstock and cut them out with a sharp knife, keeping a sharpening stone on hand for when my blade dulls. See what I do here. I glue the templates onto 2mm chipboard just using PVA, and I keep them flush with the edges so I can minimize my cutting. I put the bits with the diagonal end pieces flush with the straight ones to make 1/2 of each walkway level. After that glue's dried, I cut out the chipboard, just following those the cardstock bits. And then on 2 of the sections, I cut out a 3 by 3 centimeter hole, and this will be for a ladder later. As a slight afterthought, I add just 5mm wide strips of card around those ladder holes, or on the one bit which has no trim. I now glue these 2 sections of each walkway level together, and I just use a bit of PVA on the edges and then some cardstock glued onto the underside to reinforce that join. I want a bit more interest with the coffee tin, so I've cut this piece of cardstock. It's the height of the tin, and you can see the shape I've cut. And then down each of the sides, 2 centimeter gap in between, I've put dots for rivets. And then again, I use the fingernail jewelry bead thingies. I get them close to where they're gonna go, using just my finger, damp finger. Maneuver them into place with a cocktail stick, and then dab of super glue, push them into place. Time to glue that bit we've just made onto the coffee tin. Again, I just use PVA, splurge a load on, brush it around with an old brush, stick it into place, and then I use masking tape to hold it while it dries. While that bit's drying, I've now cut out some lengths of cardstock. They're 5mm wide, 5 centimeters long, and then the ends are cut at a 45-degree angle. And these get glued onto the walkway sections in the center, either side, just for a bit more interest. glue's now dried on that card bit we added to the coffee tin, and I've taken off the masking tape. What I do now at the top and bottom is add just another strip of 1 centimetre wide card just around the other sections of the tin. To join the walkways to the tin, I've made a load of T-beams with the horizontal section cut at an angle to sit fairly flush against the tin. So I just cut all these bits, put them together, and then glue them with super glue. And I make 2 for each side of each level of walkway. Next up, fiddly bit, putting it all together. I do this upside down, so I put the coffee tin upside down in the centre, and then I prop up a walkway to the desired height. And for me, I use toilet rolls underneath, so this is a perfect level for the lower walkway, at least for me. So I've made some marks on the underside of the walkways where the T-beams will sit, but this depends on the exact size of the tin you're using. And then I just glue these T-beams into place, try to keep it all as straight as possible, and then I glue the ends of the T-beams to the tin. And then I repeat this process with the upper walkway, but just using chipboard as a prop, so it's a few millimeters below the top of the tin. I wasn't sure, but at this point I realised the walkways are not going to be strong enough. So I've made a series of T-beams to strengthen the corners. And for the ground floor, I've also added some supporting beams cut at 45-degree angles, so they'll go against the vertical beam. But it was quite hard to get the upper and lower corner beams to be straight. If I was to do this again, I would just cut 1 long centimetre strip of chipboard, the height of both walkways, glue that on the outside, and then have 2 inner pieces for each floor. I wanted to make another level above the top of the tin, so I've cut a square of chipboard, same width as that coffee tin, with the corners cut off, and I then cover this in mesh, glue that down with PVA, and then put baking paper and a weight on top until it's dried. For the top of the tin, I decided to do this quite simply, and I just take the lid off, turn it upside down. Looks pretty cool. And then I add a 1 centimetre ring of cardstock on the top, same diameter as the sort of bottom of that lid. And then I put rivets around that and glue it all together and onto the coffee tin with PVA. Alright, so for that extra floor we've just made, I want to add walls to the sides, just keeping a space for an entrance. And what I've used is 2.5 centimetre high bits of chipboard, just the same lengths as each section of that roof. And I glue these on using super glue, and I just push it up against a straight box to keep it aligned properly. Unfortunately, I did accidentally glue this to the table, and I have to pry it off with my knife, but that's fine. And also a couple of the sections were a little bit short, so I had to recut them, as you see. Anyway, there we go. For each of the joins on that wall we've just made, I want to add 2 centimetre wide cardstock panels. And with these, I score them down the centre so they bend, and then I put a rivet in each corner. So Now we just glue those panels into place with PVA. I want this platform to be a bit higher, so I add 4 6cm high T-beams to the bottom. They're about 3 centimeters in from each of the diagonal sections. Ladders. This did take a while. If you want to see how I made these, check the video in the top right corner. But mistakes were made here, and I actually glued that top section on, but then I decided I want this removable. But of course I decided that after priming, so I just had to cut it off and then reprime those bits. Anyway, up next, I Mod Podge all the card and chipboard, spray prime it black, and then base coat burnt umber. So I show you here, I decide to add magnets to the bottom of the top section T-beam legs, and obviously the coffee tin is metal, so you know it sticks on there, no worries. And then the top ladder I also magnetize at the top and bottom, or glue magnets onto the top and bottom, and then I put some magnetic strip on the top walkway and the entrance to that top section. Anyway, after this it's painting time. I give all the metal parts a dry brush of silver. For the inner walkway sections and the top of the coffee tin, I give them a couple of coats of watered down lightish grey. The card sections I've added to the coffee tin, I give all those a couple of coats of a mix of a little bit of burnt umber and red. Do have to do at least a couple of coats here. The grey sections are now dry, and what I do is lightly dry brush some white in the centres of each of those sections, just make it look a bit nicer. I then mask off a line on the top walkway, just using masking tape, and then I sponge on white. After everything's dried, I give the whole thing a coat of my homemade black wash. So again, black paint, water, drop of dish soap. And I dab some of this off the red and grey sections just using tissue. Next up, I mix up some textured paint. So it's just burnt umber, little bit of water, some baking soda and some very fine sand, and then I just dab this on to various locations using, again, an old brush. This will ruin your brushes. Some rust effects now. So I sponge on burnt umber around where I've done that textured paint, and then also just as sort of dirt and grime in various other locations. Once that burnt umber's dried, I sponge on a bit of orange over the sections which will be rust. I want to do some stains around those rusted areas, so I just use my homemade brown wash. Same as the black wash, just obviously using brown paint, or burnt umber in this case, so I just plaster this on around the rust. I want the walkways and other bits to look quite dirty, so I stain some of these with that same brown wash. as a final stage, I want to do some sort of oil drips or some kind of dirty water running down in various locations. So I just use straight black paint and just paint this on in sort of stains. And that's the project complete. Job done. Hope you enjoyed the vid, and here are some photos of the final piece. Hope to see you next time. Cheers for now.